Okay, we are back, and it is still Wednesday evening, not for long. The clock, the date on my clock is starting to turn, so let's see if we can finish this before it becomes Thursday morning. Oh, yeah, okay, let's see. Number 12, which of the following does not represent, or which of the following reason does represent volume variances? Volume variances immediately tell us it's an overhead issue, so that's that. It's not the price amount of overhead, which is the controllable variance. So A, overhead costs would not be right because that's regarding costs. C, actual activity equal to volume used to establish. Well, that's saying there's no variance in volume whatsoever, so that's out. D, the company purchased more or less materials for production. Well, that's production, it's material, so that's out. That's not that. Leaves B, which is correct. The company operated at more or less units of production, and that's what volume variance for overhead will turn out to be. Take a look at the text so you can be familiar with that topic. Which of the following is not a criterion that the company might use to determine whether or not a variance is exceptional? So let's see. The variance is based on significant percentage of the standard cost. Well, that sounds like management by exception. So that's the key to this question, is just asking for how do companies apply management by exception. So that's what management by exception is all about. C, the variance is for large dollar amount. Yeah, that's out because that's management by exception. D, a significant percentage of flexible, same thing, management by exception, that's out. Leaves that the price variance is unfavorable, and yeah, that's an answer because it's not a criterion. Why? Because just because something's unfavorable, first of all, there's no quantity put here, which would make it exceptional, and unfavorable by itself doesn't mean anything. Small amount unfavorable we can live with, even so it doesn't. Just because it's called unfavorable isn't a criterion for determining that it's exceptional. Okay, that takes care of these two. Let's go to number 14. Now why don't you take a minute to look at it, then come back. Okay, now that you're back, the question's asking for material price variance. So let's clear some time, some space here, and let's set up the formula for material price variance. Material price variance is simply the actual quantity purchased times the standard price minus the actual price. That'll give us our price variance. Now, I said here the actual quantity purchased because that's what we're concerned about. How much did we purchase? It's not how much we use. That'll be in the quantity variance, how much we use. Here's the actual quantity purchased because we're interested in how much more did we pay than we shouldn't have paid. So we're going to look at what did we purchase? 890 pounds. Was the price differential? Well, it should have been 430 according to the budget down there, and it turned out to be really 445 down there. So that 15-cent difference times 890 will yield us what? Put the calculator on. 890 times 15 cents, 133. Answer A. Yes, this is. There we go. Simple. Oh, still Wednesday. It's not Thursday yet. Let's see if we can make it. Okay, number 15. This one gets a little complicated, so why don't you read the issues, read the problem, and then return. Okay, you're back. It's still Wednesday. Okay, what do we got here? We want to know how much is the material quantity variance. So this is the opposite end of what 14 is about. So let's do the formula of material quantity variance, which is, let's get some space here. It's the standard price times the difference in quantity used. In this case, it's the quantity used. So it would be the standard quantity expected to be used minus the actual quantity used times the standard price. So let's see what happened. Let's find out what the standard quantity used was supposed to be. Well, they planned to produce 2,000 containers. And each container would have been, how much? Let's see, each container. Okay, so the 2,000 containers is what they expected to produce, and they actually produced 1950. So based on the amount of containers that they actually did produce, the expected quantity of material used was 96 ounces. So to compare what they should have actually used for the 1950 containers that they actually produced would have been 1950 times 96 ounces, or 187,200. That was the standard quantity that they should have had based on the amount that they produced. Now, that's because they tell us 96 ounces per container. Now, what actually did happen was the following. They produced 1,950 containers, but they only used 1,480 gallons. So now that means that instead of using the amount of gallons that the amount of ounces they thought they would have used, they used a little bit less. So we have to figure out how many ounces are in 1,480 gallons, and it turns out that there's 128 ounces per gallon. How do I know that? Well, the problem sort of helps you along by telling you when they purchased 1,500 gallons, it equaled 192,000 ounces. Let me show you what I'm referring to right there. So you could have done the math to figure out how many ounces in a gallon, meaning take 1,500 gallons, and or 192,000 ounces, I should say, divided by 1,500 gallons, and you get 128 ounces per gallon. So they actually used for the production of 1,950 containers, 1,480 gallons, which times 128 gallons comes out to actually using 189,440 ounces. So the actual quantity used is this. The actual quantity that was expected to be used, and you see the beginnings of a bloody mess here on the screen. So before it turns Thursday morning, let's go through it one more time so that we can sort of all see it together. So I'm going to erase the board and do this one more time. Okay, so the problem tells you it's 96 ounces per container. They only made 1,950 containers, so we want to compare standard quantity per container to the actual quantity per container really made, and multiply it times the standard price. That's our formula for material quantity variance. Okay, so now we got that. We know our price is 15 cents per ounce, so that's solved. Now what's our standard quantity? Our standard quantity in terms of ounces for 1,950 containers is 1,950 times 96 ounces, which is 170,200. So far, so good. But they actually used 1,480 gallons to produce the 1,950 containers. So 1,480 times the number of ounces in a gallon comes out to the actual usage per ounce of 189,440. That's our formula. That difference is 22.40, I believe, between those two, times the 15-cent rate, the standard rate. Gives us $336. That's answer C. That is our material quantity variance in terms of dollars. Oh, it's now Thursday morning. How do you like that? And the clock strikes 12. Okay, so that answers that. That's another little bit of a tough problem to translate the quantities for standard and into the actual, just because of the mathematics and the fact that you got to sort of figure out how many gallons, how many ounces per gallon, and it was embedded in the problem over here. Welcome to the world of accounting problems. Okay. Some challenging ones in this practice set, so please feel free to email me with any questions you may have.